fools.
Balrogs and Blastbeats for another week. The nerdiest podcast that ever there was, the coolest uncool. Just a reason for three nerds to get together, talk metal, talk punk, talk nerd shit. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Redbeard.
I'm another one of your hosts, Margy. No last name.
Really? Just Margy Anonymous.
Like Seal.
I'm eponymous. It's one word. That's it.
And I'm Grant, and as always, we're going to swing you onto the nerdiest thing this week, and I'm sure you've all seen it. Mando Season 3 is out. And
is it? Oh my
it's
God.
good. It's good. I was very much enjoying it. The first scene was fantastic. It's got great cameos as always. One of the cameos is by Margy, you don't watch horror movies, but Josh, have you seen Smile?
No, I have heard of that, but I haven't
Okay.
seen it yet, though.
Yeah, so the creature from Smile is a cameo. Not the creature itself, but the guy who plays it. And apparently Christopher Lloyd as well is in the new episode, but I didn't notice him, so I don't know who he played because they're always just riddled with prosthetics. He's probably just a droid.
Yeah, it's like for ages. I didn't know that Simon Pegg was in episode 7 until someone pointed it out like years later because he's in this fucking huge alien costume. He's like the one that's like offering the portions. That's Simon Pegg. But I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. 1/4 portion. I never knew that actually. Here they go.
Yeah, that's Simon Pegg.
Well, it's just like even like what Taika Waititi is IG-11, like the destroyer droid. What's his name?
Richard Ayoade.
Yeah, Richard
Ayoade as well.
He has a droid. The other one. Yeah, no, there's a lot of.
They love a cameo where the person doesn't appear on screen. Just
I think every episode of the Mandos had a big cameo.
Yeah, they just pull in their friends. Like a mate of mine is Daniel Carter, who hosts like my radio show, but on the BBC. He is one of the extras in like one of the ending scenes of Andor, like where all the people are like, you know, rallying around and having that riot. Like he's just in the background of that because his friend was a prop master. He's like, do you want to come be in a Star Wars TV show? And my mate's like, fuck yes.
Yeah, no one ever says no. Like, hey, do you want to be in Star Wars? No, I would not like to be in Star Wars.
Imagine saying no to being in Star Wars. Fuck, what a
killjoy, to be honest. Like that's not someone I'd probably want to hang out with. It was just like, you know, I would not. I like maybe if you got a good reason, like if you're like, you know, I'm terrified of being on TV, it's gonna steal my soul. I don't fucking know. But yeah, it's weird. If Star Wars asks you to go on, you say yes, damn it. You say yes.
Star Wars asked me to go on. I'll be a droid.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be a droid.
How about you, Margy? What's the nerdiest thing you've done except for dream about being a droid?
Dude, Margy's dream of electric sheep. Nearly. We'll go with that. I hope you can all see my groceries getting delivered in the background if you're watching on YouTube. I've had a chaotic and off week. I've been heckers busy and I haven't had time to just nerd out. I guess the most exciting thing I can say, which I don't think I'm allowed to announce yet. Damn it. Okay, well, I can't announce my exciting music news either.
I don't know. Will it be?
Margy's joining his 17th band is pretty much
will it be out before the Wednesday after we record this?
Will it be announced in 3 days' time?
It'll be announced when it gets announced.
That's always bad.
But something that I have been, for some reason, frequently Googling this week and teaching myself about is the 7 Wonders of the Ancient World. Because I don't know why, it's just been on my mind a lot. Which makes me really, for those who don't know, it's the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, statue of Zeus, which at Phidias, the Temple of Artemis, Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, Colossus of Rhodes, the Lighthouse of Alexandria. So very cool, Bateman. But the only one that we don't know if it really existed is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. And upon more reading, it turns out that they think that there were hanging gardens, except they were just at a different place. They were at Nineveh instead of at Babylon. And the reason why...
It's much harder to say, though, isn't it? So that's why we're going to stay with Babylon.
It's less catchy,
It's like, let's be real, like Nineveh is not that far away.
But it was actually... The reason I got onto it is because in the last episode, we were talking about Saddam Hussein finding a Stargate, as if this is a conspiracy theory, that Saddam Hussein found a Stargate in the ruins of Babylon. I mean, Iraq has got some amazing history. Oh, and it's been destroyed a lot. Thanks, America. Anyway, and so, so I was like, wait, oh my God, did he destroy the evidence of the Hanging Gardens? No, it was anyway. But that's the current theory, is that the gardens were actually just somewhere else, and I'm liking that. I'll do some more research. Stay tuned. This is just something that's exciting me at the moment, and I don't know why. Also, it's a bit rude because it's all centered around Greece, Egypt, and Turkey, and then there's one in Iraq, and I'm like, come on, guys, what about the Great Wall of China? Surely that might have been getting built at the time. Nope.
Nah,
no interest. Anyway, that is my subpar nerdery for the week. I apologize for being
still nerdy. It's still nerdy.
That's all right. I was just going to talk about the fact that most of them probably didn't exist anyway, but no, like, not as we believe it to be. Like, say, like the Colossus of Rhodes, for example. Everyone's like, oh well, the whole structure was standing across this giant river. It's just not possible. First of all, it was standing on one side of the river, and it just fell over from earthquake, and then they just stole it and sold off all the marble.
Yeah, they just kind of broke it up and just left some crap at the bottom of the ocean. We love to see it. God, Atlantis one week, Seven Wonders the next. I think I should change what I'm studying. Anyway,
aliens built the Sphinx.
I really want to find out more about this now, because, like, I think, like, when you talk about the Seven Wonders of the world, though, like, I've never looked into them, but I just always assumed it was stuff that actually existed. Like, so this is more like seven wondrous myths. Existed,
but a lot of it has been stolen before we've seen it. Like, say, like the statue of Zeus was supposed to be like plated in gold and bronze and all that, but it was already, I think it was I can't remember which place basically stole it and melted it all down, but yeah, essentially a lot of it used to exist. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus fell into the ocean of Turkey. It's like there's
the statue of Zeus was covered in gemstones. Like,
that was it.
What's the first thing that someone's going to do? And it was also largely made out of ivory. So
ivory, that was it. I knew it was something.
Poor elephants. There are 7 wonders of the new world, of the modern world: Machu Picchu, Chichen Itza, Roman Colosseum, Christ the Redeemer, the Great Wall of China, the Taj Mahal, and the city of Petra. So which are all old.
Yeah, they're all from about this, like, but you still, like, what, they're all from about, like, the 200-ish BCE, aren't they? Like, Colossus of Rhodes is from the same time as the Great Wall of China.
So
Temple of Zeus is probably also similar.
Yeah, but these are also, like, the Chichen Itza is a Mayan city, and it's got the stepped pyramid, like that Mayan pyramid. But that was like 9th and 10th century Common Era. So
okay, yeah.
Hey, so these are all built in the Common Era, from what I can tell.
Yeah, not before Common Era. We don't use the other terminologies.
we don't use the Jesus word around here.
We are a BCE podcast. Before Common Era.
Unless I forget and I say before, whoopsies. Anyway, very cool, Bateman.
I was just going to say something that I find funny as well about, say, you look at this, like the ancient wonders of the world, they're all, even the Great Pyramids are as old to us now as they are to those other things on the list. Like, when those things on the list were built, like 2,000 years-ish ago, the pyramids are still another 2,000 years older than the rest of those. It's like, why doesn't that just get a separate list?
Man fears time, and time fears the pyramids.
Yes. But it's just weird that, like, oh, sorry, no.
Oh, sorry. Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than she did to the construction of the Great Pyramid. So, like,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, we can't just squish it all together, but it's like such a large expanse of time.
Sorry, alleged construction of the Great Pyramids, because let's be real, they were zapped down to Earth by aliens. We all know that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh God, we're all nerds for history, aren't we?
I love history.
Fucking love it. Get me knee deep. Josh, what are you knee deep in this week?
So literally, like, so I got like a runner-up and then an actual one. So while I was waiting for you nerds to come on, because I have a thing about being early for everything, we said we're going to record at 9 a.m. So I was in front of my computer at 8 a.m. because I have issues. So I was just like, I was ready to go.
I woke up at 8 a.m.
It's just, trolling through YouTube as I do. I'm like currently like halfway through a video called Earth to Mars in 39 Days, the science behind these new ion thrusters. So I'm learning about ion thrusters at the moment, which is very fun.
How do ion thrusters work?
Yes. I wasn't really paying attention. It's still early and I haven't had enough coffee, but something to do with there's like adding mass to what they're shooting out the back. So like adding weight to it so it pushes out, so it kind of pushes thrust further away because it's heavier behind, because that's what you've got obviously match.
Well, because you have something to push off of, because space is nothing.
Yeah, so the more energy you can create, the more mass you can add to the the ion particles that you're shooting out the back, and therefore the faster you go.
They're just polluting space.
Basically, is what they're doing. Yeah, 100%.
Ions all over space. That's not going to end well. I'm calling black hole formation.
But the main thing that I've been nerding over this week, so we release the podcast every week on a Wednesday, and on Wednesday I also host a punk rock radio show on Triple J called Short Fast Loud. As a little,
are you Josh Redbeard from Short Fast Loud? Oh my god, you're a celebrity.
Are you plugging your own stuff on my podcast?
Well, no, I'm plugging that this Wednesday is International Women's Day. So on the show that night, I am programming just 2 hours of just bands featuring female identifying artists. We've got one of our hosts on the podcast. Like I said, Margy's in like 17 or 18 different bands.
So she's actually entire.
So pretty much I could program an entire stuff just on bands that Margy is a part of. Absolutely. But it does mean
I am still looking for more projects if anyone is interested in a bass player or poor vocalist.
But it means that, I've spent the last week like nerding out over like a whole bunch of women in punk and hardcore and metalcore and whatnot. And I came across a really, really fucking sick band that I wanted to shout out. It's a band called Junah, but spelled DJUNAH.
Do they play gent?
No, they don't. They play that sort of like shoegazy meets post-hardcore sound. That's like, like Will Haven, Daughters, Swans sort of stuff, that like that like real wall of sound kind of stuff. But they just released an album called Femina Furens, which is Latin for furious woman. And it's like, that's exactly what this fucking album is. It's just like a wall of sound. And then lyrically, it's very much like
they're a two-piece.
Like Sylvia Plath kind of like poetry, like deep, dark, emotional shit. And the whole album's like about like processing CPTSD. And it's just, I think that's the thing I love about our genres as well, is like to create a lyrical soundscape about that sort of experience. I don't think works in, like, you couldn't do that in country music. You couldn't do that in pop music. You couldn't do that in pretty much any other sound apart from the sound championed by Daughters of Will Haven and Swans.
Yeah, like, you need a certain amount of pain.
I reckon you could do it. I reckon you could do it in country music in a very esoteric kind of way. Like, you got to do it like Johnny Cash. You need like that kind of voice.
Yeah, like Johnny Cash hurt, but like other Johnny Cash, like you can do like fucking.
I fell into a burning ring of chronic PTSD. Complex PTSD.
Yeah.
Are you gonna put some Lingua Ignota on there? Just
Lingua Ignota.
That's it. Yeah, just make everyone's brain fall apart when they listen to that.
Thankfully, that belongs on the Racket, and so I don't have to play that, because that belongs. The Racket's the more like the heavy metal, the industrial, that side of stuff, and so that definitely fits in Lachlan's realm instead, which is very thankful.
I am putting out the vote that Grant and I take out Lachlan, and then we host the Racket, and then Balrogs and Blastbeats have complete monopoly over Triple J alternative music scene. Every week you will be hearing Zeolite death metal. Weird.
I actually don't think that it's actually not allowed. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's legally that's allowed. Why I've always played Lachlan's bands on my show, because he's not allowed to play them on his show.
God damn. Well, in that case, Grant, I'll host and I'll play your bands on my show.
Well, whenever my bands, like if we were to play on the Racket, Lachlan has to then not be on the Racket, because we're on his label. So he has to, if we're to be on the Racket, he actually has to not be the host of that night.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that I played you the night that I covered the Racket, which is the whole wild politics of radio at the moment. But, bringing it back though, I highly recommend. Like I said, every week I post links in the show notes to everything that we talk about in the nerdiest things. Sometimes it's a funny kind of side link and whatnot. But I'll post a link to Junah's Bandcamp and fucking check it out, because it's such a good album. Like, it's a harrowing album, but it's fucking sick.
I'm excited.
really sick.
Yeah.
And so so I've been nerding out over a lot of women in punk rock and hardcore, and
I've been fangirling because we get a tour with Solemn, the Taiwanese metal band, and I'm fucking excited. Their vocalist is like, she's tiny. She's like 5 foot tall, if that. And she's got gutturals on her that she yeets them out with zero effort. And they've got a female drummer as well, who's just like, I think she's sponsored by Zildjian and stuff. And just like immaculate drumming with zero effort. And I'm like, man, like, how many secret amazing bands are there hidden in Asia? I will find out. But yeah, like I love finding a band where you've just got some sick female talent, and you're like, especially in the alternative music scene, and you're like, yeah.
I figured out there's like the secret to fangirling out over your favorite artist though, is you wait until you have to wait until they're kind of comfortable with you. Because I had this problem when the last Soundwave that ever happened, a band I ended up on tour with a band called Kill or Be Killed, which is members of Plan, Soulfly, Mastodon, Converge, and Torch, all in this one sick super group. And like Greg Puciato,
so cool. Kill or Be Killed is sick.
Kill or Be Killed is fucking amazing. And the whole time I'm like, holy shit, like I'm hanging out with like with my musical idols and like playing it cool because I'm there to take photos and do video and whatnot. But the last night of Soundwave, we were in Sydney and we kind of finished up work. We were packing up. We're all just hanging out backstage. And Troy from Mastodon, who was in the band, he comes out the back and he has like, because if you had your artist pass that didn't get you on stage for Slipknot was separate passes and he had a whole bunch of them. So he just kind of gave them to all of us. And I'm like, ah. And then Greg Puciato goes, now don't fangirl too hard. And I just snapped at that point because like we'd been hanging out a week. So I knew that I wasn't a fucking massive sweater, but I was just kind of like, dude, you have no idea how hard it's been to not this whole week, but can I just for 2 seconds? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so I showed him my like Dillinger Escape Plan tattoo that I have inside like of my arm. And I'm a little bit of a fan. And he's like, dude, that's fucking sick. And he tells me all about like when he was, because there's lyrics from Milk Lizard. He tells me about writing Milk Lizard and whatnot. And like since then, like I've worked with him again. He's like, I fucking love that I'm working with someone who's like, you know, a fan and appreciates and understands what I'm trying to do. And I'm like, fan me down.
Oh,
but yeah. So save it to like
night. We all love and appreciate what you do, and we really understand 100%. It. If you ever want to talk to any of us who's not
100%.
I want a milk lizard tattoo, but I want a lizard sitting in a cup of milk, drinking the milk. I just think it'll be really funny, and he's going to be wearing a cowboy hat.
It showed what a massive nerd I was though when I got it, because like if you're watching on YouTube you can see it, but it's the comedy and tragedy masks, and I went into my I went into my tattooist as like, I want the comedy and tragedy masks with the lyrics, this feels like never ending. And he didn't understand what I meant. And so I had to pull up a photo. He's like, oh, you mean the laugh now, cry later tattoo? And I went, what? I was like, apparently it's a real gangster tattoo. It's called laugh now, cry later. I was like, no, it's the comedy and the tragedy masks. I'm a nerd of classical theater.
Get your nerdisms right.
Pretty much.
Oh,
but it's time to move into the medium beat for this week. And Margy, I believe you have a conundrum that you want to kind of put out in the universe and see if Grant and I can kind of help you with your conundrum.
Shockingly, I never do medium beats because I'm a lazy. But correct me. I'm doing a correct me if I'm wrong. Like, or am I wrong in thinking this? That like, if something is super popular and it's a huge pop culture trend and all the fucking normies are getting on it, am I wrong in just being turned off and not wanting to engage with that aspect of pop culture?
I think that just makes you a contrarian, doesn't it?
Well, I do run mostly on spite, so yeah, probably.
I think it depends on how hard they lean into it. Like if they forget, like if something realizes its popularity and forgets where it came from, I don't think it's such a bad thing to be turned off by it. But I think if they steer the same course that people just happen to be gravitating to, then I think it's okay. But then you run the risk of being one of those people who's like, I liked them when they weren't cool, and that's not cool either.
I'd find my issue with it would be, especially it's a big thing in the music scene, is people want to see things as their thing. And when that moves on, like say, like Lorna Shore, for example, they're massive now. People are not going to like them purely because other people like them. It's like, well, that makes no sense, because shouldn't you be like, I'm so happy that this thing from my sphere has gained enough traction that these people can make a living off it, and I'm just going to turn around and go, how dare you be successful? I hate you now because you've achieved what you actually wanted to achieve. That's the way I see it. And I think it's a massive problem, especially in our culture, that we just kind of, as soon as something gets big enough that it gets mass traction, which is what we're all trying to do anyway, we just turn around and hate it, because we haven't done that ourselves.
Probably because we've just been struggling for years, working bum jobs. Josh has got a good job,
but at the same time, if those bands never made it, then like it's even small aperture for us to do it, because they need to create an appetite for us to be able to succeed in that environment. And if we're just all going to hate on them for making an achievement and a headway that we can also follow, I think it's something that I'm not a huge fan of in our music scene. It's not. I'm not saying that's how you are about it, but I'm saying that there's a lot of people that are like that. That it would be.
I mean, it took me way too long. Like, like Slipknot's an early band that a lot of people listen to when they're getting into the metal sphere, and it took me way too long to listen to Slipknot for the first time, because I was like, fucking everyone likes Slipknot, what's the big fucking deal? And then I like listened to like Iowa, and I was like, yeah, right.
Checks out.
Yeah, checks out. But like, I delayed it so much because I was like, it's fucking everyone listens to it. And the biggest turn off for me, like, you guys know I'm a book nerd, and
what?
Shocking. The biggest thing for me though is that, like, if there's like a book, I'm trying to think of an example. Boy Swallows Universe. That's a book that was recently huge, and like, anytime you go through a bookstore, it's like #1 bestseller all over the front cover, and I'm like, I don't want to read that. Sounds boring. Like, I don't even read the blurb, but I'm just like, I just assume it's going to be fucking tedious. But that might also be like because I like weird books. So I do have a Kurt Vonnegut tattoo. Like,
I think the other side is depends on how much pride you take in it as well. It's because like I always find like it's funny on like Hinge as a dating app that has that like, believe it or not, or never have I ever, and people take pride in like, they're never have I ever, believe it or not, like I've never seen Star Wars or I've never seen Lord of the Rings, and it's like that's not something to take pride in. Like, fair enough if you haven't, whatever, but if that's like as interesting as your person gets, like
I recently reinstalled Hinge because I'm helping my coworker make his Hinge profile. We made his Tinder profile. Now I'm helping him make his Hinge profile. He did call me the other day when I was working from home. We spent like 45 minutes just talking about his dating profile. I was like, thank you. But like, so I was back on it. And yeah, there's so many like, like I would love to tell you all about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm like, like, geez, real, like that's your special topic. All right. Like, so like,
I mean,
don't know,
don't come for Josh too hard now, but
hey, Josh would want to tell someone about Warhammer. All right. So
I'd want to tell you about the entire lore of Warhammer.
He would roll a dice, and any of those topics you'd be chained to a table with him for 4 hours.
I've just finished book 45 in the Horus Heresy series. Like I am deep in it. But I'm trying to avoid in that fucking, we're going to go on a fucking huge tangent, but they've just released like the final book in the series, final book part 1 in the series. And so there's some massive spoilers all over like these groups that I'm in. So I'm trying really hard to just like skip over every single post in those groups until I can catch up. But I still have like fucking 30 books to go or something like that. But yeah. Margy, I don't think it's particularly wrong as long as you don't take pride in it, and as long as like, it depends on the reason. Like if it's just because it's popular, but like if a band's changing, or if like if a series is changing to try and like
be
forget
popular.
where it came from, if it's trying to do things specific because like it doesn't serve the story, it doesn't serve the idea, it's just serving the popularity, I think that's fair enough. Like, like power to people if that's what they want to do. But
I'd even use like a band like Code Orange, for example. A lot of people, like when they were coming up, everyone was like, "Oh, these guys are popular." All the hardcore kids and everything.
Code Orange kids.
They all like this band, and then all the metal guys are like, "Well, all these kids like this band. I'm not going to listen to them." And then all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh, wait, this is just the industrial music we all love." But we didn't listen to them because hardcore kids.
Have you heard that new remix album? I did not enjoy it.
No,
fair.
I'm
Yeah.
personally,
No, but
I'm not a huge fan of them. Like, it's not my vibe, but I didn't just not listen to them just because other people that weren't in my sphere listened to them. Like, I just it doesn't make sense to me. It's just like, well, these people that I don't like this thing that I should like, so I'm not gonna like it just because you like it. It's silly.
But I think we're also all guilty of like judging something by its fan base
absolutely,
as
yes,
well.
yes.
Because like, yeah, I remember for the longest time, back, in that sort of like early 2000s emo scene, I just flat out refused to listen to Bullet for My Valentine because of the people I saw wearing their t-shirts. And I just thought they were another emo band.
The
And
riffs.
I literally thought they were just like another Funeral for a Friend or another like Story of the Year. And so I was like, like I don't need another emo band in my life. And then like, yeah, I fucking heard the riffs and I was like, oh,
Each
you're actually
song
like
is a riff for a generation. They're weapons. It's
like a British metal band, like literally,
Yeah.
like you follow on from like Maiden and shit. But yeah, all these fucking emo kids were wearing their merch, and so I was like, no. Just
Yeah,
no.
I did
they do
the same
also have
thing.
the worst lyrics ever. Like, their lyrics are so bad.
Are you saying your tears don't fall; they crash around you? Like that's not a thing that happens to you.
That's poetic. I've got a tattoo of it.
Do you actually?
No, I was going to say on my
please.
ass, and then my ADHD brain went to an amazing tattoo that I saw of someone's butt cheek. You get like your butt cheek crease, and it's Atlas holding up the butt cheek. I don't have any space on the back of my thighs, but if someone does, anyway,
It just reminds me of my friend. My friend lost a bet, and now she has fuck on one butt cheek and me on the other butt cheek, and it's my favorite butt tattoo ever.
I still want the words "your name," just your. So I'll be like, oh my god, like when you meet someone, you can be like, oh my god, I've got your name tattooed on my ass. Your name
tattooed to me.
Yeah, it's a great get. And my friends, I would have no friends after that. But
Fair.
I think this does kind of lead into the next section that we're going to do, because like I think also a lot of the times with books, like if it is like a really popular book, generally I won't enjoy the subject matter, and I find that really interesting. Like if it's, like, a stirring family drama, I'm like, oh, that sounds fucking boring. Absolutely not. Because, I like sci-fi. I like fantasy. Like, and I also like murder mysteries. I'm currently reading The Thursday Murder Club, which got me onto this topic. I found it in a street library, and it's got all the bestseller tags all over it.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it's a trashy read. It's nothing that requires a lot of cognition, which is good because, like, I'm having a bad brain time. It's great. And also it reminds me of, like, Alexander McCall Smith, how he wrote, like, the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series, which are just wholesome, fun books. Like, there's still, like, a bit of emotion in there occasionally, but it's, like, an African lady runs a detective agency in Botswana. Like, when you want to turn your brain off, it's fantastic, and it's better than scrolling through TikTok. So, yeah, but like I didn't read this book till now, even though I love old people and I love murder mysteries. My name's Margaret, of course. I love old people, but like because it had the bestseller tag on it. But yeah.
Fair. Well, yeah, I mean, it is a very, very good kind of intro to the main beat for this week, because, dear listeners, you may have seen via the title, it is the book.
We've got to stop giving it away.
Yeah, it is the book versus the film, but then there'll also be, there won't be a parentheses, but the parentheses is when we say film, we mean movies and television, because obviously TV is a big format these days. But it's
screen-based entertainment.
Screen-based entertainment.
Book
but yeah,
versus visual media.
Yeah, book versus it doesn't roll off the tongue as easily.
No, but books are visual media.
I guess if you have a visual brain, some people don't.
Are. So. Well, I guess technically you have to look at the words to read them, but it's extremely boring. It's not very visually exciting.
That is what reading is, just looking at words. Nothing more going on.
Yeah, fuck you.
But it's interesting for this podcast, because in this podcast we have 2 readers and 1 avid non-reader.
I sometimes think maybe I'm dyslexic.
I've seen Grant burn books. I've seen him burning books.
Yeah, he's literally
It gets cold down here in Tasmania. Maybe maybe the Stand by Stephen King, 1,000 pages. It's too much. Starts a good fire though.
But it's interesting as well, because I you think about stereotypes within like, neurodivergence and whatnot. And people may lean and think, oh, I have ADHD, so I can't concentrate on books. But I was like, I mean, Margy sitting in front of us reads like no one's business. The best mate, my best mate reads more books than anyone I know. She can read like 4 books a day. I think, her fucking Goodreads challenge, she set a challenge of like 500 books in a year and hit it by like June. And I'm like, you're insane.
But Grant, is afford that many books? Like that's
just e-readers. You can borrow them.
It's called a library. It's
you can now borrow ebooks from the library to your e-reader, which I still don't understand the science of exactly how that works.
You can also illegally download them.
Yeah,
not
but
that
you don't
we
have
encourage
you don't
such
have the
a thing.
experience, do you?
Hey, if the author's dead, fuck it.
Or if the dead's like, if the author's like a transphobe or something like that, then whatever, fuck them, whatever. But yeah, Grant, is there something about reading that you just don't do? You just find you can't concentrate, or it's like what is it about?
It bores me. Like even books that I have of things that I really like, I'd read it and I'd find I read the same page like 7 times. I'm like, could go do something else, I reckon. I can't concentrate on it. It just doesn't get my goat. Like, but sometimes like if I can get into like pretty deep like Wikipedia hole and I've got no problem. So it's probably just there. It's probably just a willingness, and it just doesn't catch me.
Yeah.
Have you found this like a certain like? Has there been any books that have surprised you that they've caught you?
No, but not a one.
Not even the good book. The Lord of the Rings.
No. Watch the movie.
I did do a casual bit of research about why people might not like reading, and there's me. And there's actually really predictable patterns why people won't enjoy reading. It's so like the more education someone has, the more likely they are to be a reader. Urban people read more than rural people. Affluence is associated with reading. Young girls read earlier. And boys do, and girls continue to read more into adulthood. And if a child grew up around books, they are more likely to be a reader. And so especially if your parents or the people who were raising you engaged with books. So my parents have always had bookshelves. My auntie was a librarian. I spent religious education time reading in the library. I had no friends, so I read a lot.
I was so jealous of kids like you in primary school. So jealous.
Let's not get into the religious education thing right now. And being able to transform words into images is really important. Like the thought processes, it's a learnt skill. It's something that it's something that you're taught, and it depends on how you were taught as well. It's not like your education, like it might have been the quality of education as well, like what kind of teachers you had. And also having a positive attitude towards reading. So like you should think of reading as more like chocolate cake than like broccoli.
I prefer broccoli over chocolate cake. So maybe that's why reading is chocolate cake. And I'm like, no,
but like I would pick broccoli over chocolate. I fucking hate chocolate. Like I've hated chocolate since I was a kid.
Are you a dog?
I do like chocolate, but I love broccoli, and I'm so happy that the price of broccoli has gone down recently because
broccoli's the fucking best.
Broccoli's elite.
Broccoli is good. Like a nice roast broccoli, crispy. Vegan life. But anyway,
even raw broccoli is still.
It is never too late to take up reading. It is just a habitual thing that takes practice as well. So like you set positive boundaries around reading and you make it a habit. Like, I don't know, read 10 minutes before you go to bed instead of scrolling on your phone. And it can happen. But I understand that some people have dyslexia. Some people don't have, because of like neurodivergence or something, don't have the ability to turn pictures, like words into pictures, which is why graphic novels are great, because you can. Like it does it for you. So, it's there, so reading can, in my opinion, reading includes comics and graphic novels and everything, consuming that printed medium and taking it in. So, if reading's not for you, that's cool, man. I'll read for you. I'll give you books. There is actually there are podcasts that like will give you
read books.
They will give you the plot synopsis of books. so you don't even have to read it or listen to the audiobook. But audiobooks are great as well. Audiobooks are fantastic. When I used to do exam marking, I used to plug in an audiobook and just be like, these guys are idiots, and just have like, I don't know, fucking Wuthering Heights going through my ears, like stimulating.
Yeah, and it helps when it's like it's done by someone cool, because like, I will wholeheartedly admit to pirating all the Harry Potter books as audiobooks, because
100%.
Stephen Fry reads them, and Stephen Fry is just like fucking, he sounds so good, he does all the characters so well, and I was like, fuck yeah, Stephen Fry, I love you, you're the best.
Yeah, that got me through a real bad patch of insomnia and depression. So thanks, Stephen Fry, and illegal torrenting.
But so with me, with reading, I was never a reader as a kid, because when I was reading as a kid, it was just the stuff that like the school said you had to read, and it was all shit. And so I just thought reading was shit, because I was like, all these books suck, they're so boring, there's nothing about them.
Mice and Men.
Yeah, of Mice and Men, fucking Lockie
Catcher in the
Rye, Catcher in the Rye, The Crucible, fucking Breaker Morant, Deadly Anna. I can remember so many of them. I was just bored by all of them.
Should have been getting on the Del Toro quest, mate.
It wasn't until I was
never read that.
15 or something like that, and I read Christopher Pike's The Last Vampire, and I was like, oh, this is actually sick. And then I read like they're all like trashy fucking, vampire shit. But I was like, I could actually be interested, Chucky, in stuff that I wanted to read. If you're listening to this podcast rather than watching it, there is now a dog on Grant's camera as well.
And he's
just come in here because I've just heard him tumble over the TV in the lounge room. So that's going to be something I'm going to have to deal with after this episode.
Oh, did you break something, Chucky?
And hopefully it's not broken. Hopefully it's not my TV, Chucky.
Hopefully it's not broken, Chucky.
So yeah, I mean, everyone's got, like, I could talk about reading and getting into it for forever. Like I've always had an advanced reading age. I think it's part of like my ASD. Like I was far intellectually more capable than I was emotionally. And like my teacher would just leave me in charge of the class to read whatever novel was the reading time novel for the week. And then she'd go out and have a ciggy or whatever people did in the 90s. So, but yeah, enough about reading. How do you, adaptations? You take the book to the screen. What does it take to make a good one? Like, how do you do it good?
I wrote like a couple of notes about this, because I think like it's similar, like when we were talking about like remakes a while back, like similar sort of vibe, but there's a couple of things that are like a little bit different. Is one, it has to respect without pandering to the established audience. I feel like if it tries to be something very different, like if it misses the main idea behind it, and I will use an example, and I'll go on a fucking rant, which in my opinion is one of the worst adaptations ever, but we'll use this as the thing. I don't hide any of the fact that I fucking hate Tim Burton. All of his movies, like there's like 2 that I enjoy, but most of them I think are garbage. But
you're alternative. Surely you like Tim Burton.
His version of Alice in Wonderland misses the fucking core point of the goddamn book. The whole book is about the power of curiosity and imagination, and Alice being open to these things. She's not scared of these things. She's curious about it. She's a bit pensive, but she's like curious. Like it's curiouser and curiouser. It's literally written in the fucking book. And then you watch Tim Burton's version of Alice in Wonderland, and she has to be like dragged everywhere by someone else. Like the rabbit has to like force her into these things, and the fucking Cheshire Cat, all these characters have to make her do these things. She doesn't have any fucking curiosity about her, and it makes me so goddamn mad, because I literally have an Alice in Wonderland tattoo. Well, I mean technically Through the Looking Glass.
'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the way. Well, Mimsy were the borogroves and the moon rats outraged. Yeah, sorry.
It's like, look, like I literally, if you're watching on YouTube, I literally have a Cabbages and Kings tattoo. Like I have a crown in a cabbage on my arm. It's like the most subtle thing in the world, but I fucking love it. But yeah, I think that's one thing. It has to understand the core point of the book, and if you miss the core point of the book, then the movie, it doesn't matter how well it's shot, it doesn't matter how good the script is, it's a shit adaptation in my opinion, and it makes me really angry, as you can tell.
One example that's amazing is The Princess Bride, and the reason why it adapted so well is the guy who wrote it did the adaptation of the novel to the screen. So he knew it. He's passionate about it. So you need someone who knows the source material and gets it. Like,
There is also a lot of times where the person who wrote it comes on and does a really bad job as well, because a screenplay is a bit different from a book. Like to make a cohesive screenplay versus a cohesive book, it's not exactly the same skill as well. Like I agree, The Princess Bride is a really good example of basically getting a book, putting all the best bits of the book onto the screen.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a lot of people that are like, because their ego is so tied into that book, they're just like not change anything about it. It's like, well, this part of the book actually sucks. Let's be real. And then it's like, no, but it must be on the screen. And it's just like, yeah, but it completely ruins the pacing of everything. It's like, no, it must be on the screen. So like, I think you can't put exactly what was in the book on the screen because they're two different mediums.
No, but you've got to get someone who gets what the key is. But casting is really important, and I think it's not necessarily about like getting a perfect visual match. There's wigs, I don't fucking care, but it's like the best actor for the role, like, you know, like Hannibal Lecter, for example. You've got Anthony Hopkins playing him, and then you've got Mads
Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen playing him. Two very different people in appearance, both flawless renditions of psychopathy in different stages, and it's just like someone who gets it. And also, this is really hard to say. There's the intangibility of novels. So there's space between the words, and there's texture and character to the writing. And movies don't have that, but they do have cinematography and scores and music, you know. So you've got to get directors and composers and directors of photography who understands
the flavor of the book,
what the book feels like, and how do you put that onto the screen, which is like, I mean, I think it's just one of those skills you're either born with or you're not, you know, like,
100%.
and, you know, and let's be real, there are so many fucking movies based off books.
And some you just forget as well along the way, because like sometimes the movie is just that good that people don't realize that it's an adaptation of a book. But I think like, another important part, and it actually used to be one of my favorite movies until I read the book, is don't try and be too smart. Don't try and do something kind of like, because I, as a kid, loved the film A Clockwork Orange. I think it's such visually, it's such a fantastic film. It is done very, very well. Once I read the book, the adaptation is great, but the film always had a big question for me that I always wondered, because Alex at the start of the film has his 3 droogs, and then he goes to jail, he comes out, and he meets 2 droogs who become cops, but you never see what happens to the 3rd droog. And it's always that kind of question, what the fuck happened to him? Well, the film finishes on the second last chapter of the book, and the last chapter of the book shows what happened to the 3rd droog, but fucking what's his name? Kubrick kind of did that because the last chapter of the book also explains what happens to Alex. Obviously in the film, he wanted to leave it up to sort of interpretation. Does he go back to his old ways? Does he not? Whereas like the last chapter of the book very much explains that in a good way, in my personal opinion, but also kind of wraps up the story. And I feel like Kubrick was trying to be too smart, trying to be like, oh, let's just leave it up to the audience, but leave all these fucking questions hanging. And I just feel like when I found out the ending, I was like, oh, no, this is better. Like,
do you think, so you think a sad ending is better than an open ending?
I feel like a definitive ending, because it's not even a sad ending. Like the end of A Clockwork Orange isn't particularly sad, but it's like, I don't like an open ending. Like fair enough, like leave it up to interpretation in some things. Like, you know, it's like, you know, this whole, does he kill him? Does he not? Like, you know, the end of Sopranos, cool, fucking whatever. But like, I think when you've done that, but left questions unanswered, it's kind of silly. Like I feel like he tried to be too smart and just left too much open to interpretation.
Yeah. And I like the movie of A Clockwork Orange just because I find it really hard to read with Nadsat in the book. It really, like the slang language that they use in the book. I'm like, now I understand people with dyslexia. I'm like looking at it and I'm like, like just use the word. I understand its importance and all of that, but for me, it just spicy.
Yeah, it took me, I think, 3 reads until I understood everything, and I would still get confused between. I mean, fuck, even now, like it's one of my favorite books, and all I remember was that Rook means fist and horror show means good, And that's literally all I remember from all the words he fucking said, because it's been too long since I've read it.
Yeah.
But like, I'm sure I'd pick it up again. But yeah, it is a very challenging read because you're basically learning another language.
Yeah, and you know, there's only so much space in my noggin. If I want to put some new information, I'm going to push something out, like how to use the washing machine, and you know, like
it's an essential skill. That one,
questionable.
But you know, I think in general, like lately, I think the rules have changed, because I think, like, you know, people have always said, you know, the book is always better than the film, and I think, like, if you go back to the 90s and earlier, that was probably true. But I think, like, with the expansion of television, especially over the last 20 years, that's kind of shifted a lot. Because I hate fucking starting sentences like that, but like, kids these days wouldn't remember the fact that, like, television used to be seen as like a lower class of production. It used to be seen as like, if you're a film star that went down to television, that was like a shocking step backwards, and it just never ever happened. And it wasn't until it was The Sopranos and The Wire is what made people see what was possible with television and how good television really could be. And since then, obviously, we've had a fucking explosion of it. But yeah, it's like, I was trying to imagine Game of Thrones being done as like just 8 films, and I was like, that'd be the worst. Like, you couldn't actually do it. The amount you'd have to cut out of it, like,
they already cut out a lot. Like,
yeah, I don't even think you could follow just one house. Like, if it was just a film, like just about the fucking Baratheons or just about the Lannisters, like, I still think you couldn't fit that into 8 films.
Too much.
Yeah, and even the horribly rushed thing that was Game of Thrones, it was very like, they just ran through it with their arms flailing. It's like, I mean, you know, absolutely not doable. But Lord of the Rings, though, works really well in movies. Obviously, there is some upset about Tom Bombadil being left out, but
especially in this podcast. But
yeah, Tom Bombadil, fucking. If I get another cat, I'm going to call it Tom Bombadil, because I
can't remember if I sent this meme into the group chat the other day, but maybe I didn't. But I'm going to explain it on here anyway. There was a great meme where someone took the poster for that the film The Other Guys, that shitty buddy cop film with Will Ferrell, but put Tom Bombadil and Radagast the Brown as like the other guys. It's like everyone else was busy, so they called us. And I was like, I would 100% watch that film.
I would 100% watch that film. Radagast would have no fucking use there. It would just be Tom Bombadil fucking shit up, which I'm about.
I see, like, Radagast would be like his backup singer. That's what I said. Like, he would be there as good harmonies in the background of Tom Bombadil's songs. Is basically
it's comedic relief.
I've got some good adaptations.
All right, let's jump into some good adaptations.
So I should do books that I've read first, and then I can do ones I've heard of. So, like, Atonement. That was one of the best novels I've read, I reckon. Like, I was 13 and weeping openly, and I couldn't put it down. And I was like walking home and reading it, just like, oh my God. And the movie, like, I've watched the movie a couple of times. First time I watched it, I was like, and then on thinking about it, I was like, actually, this is pretty good. Like, because there's different points of view and there's different levels of truth telling and stuff like that. And like, would I recommend the movie if you're not a reader? Yeah, give it a crack. Would I recommend the movie or the book? Book any day. Like, the book has got a level of beauty that the movie doesn't touch. And another Keira Knightley one, lol. Her in Pride and Prejudice. That Pride and Prejudice adaptation is done really well. The casting is top notch, and like Mr. Collins, who's like the priest kind of, or whatever he's called, the, you know, clergyman who like proposes to like every single one of the daughters, lol. And he's really annoying in the books, and then in the book, and then when his casting, perfect. Lizzie's dad, perfect. Lizzie's mum, perfect. It's fantastic, and there's all this attention for detail. Like, Mr. Darcy does like all of these really subtle things that really just add that, like, it tells this, it's all the spaces in the book that you don't see, because Lizzie's kind of ignorant to the fact that Mr. Darcy is like, yeah, but like it puts them all into the movie without it being anything extra, and it's really nice.
Cute.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. You got any Keira Knightley films?
I mean, no Keira Knightley films for me. I think like in terms of good ones that I really enjoyed, like Good Omens was phenomenally done. Like every single character in Good Omens was amazing. The Martian's one of my favorite books ever. And I was really like, when they said they would turn it into film, I was curious because The Martian's mainly written as diary entries by fucking old mate when he's stuck on Mars. And I was like, how are they gonna make this into a film? But they did a really, really good job of doing that. Runner up in terms of like films that are far better than the books is the Harry Potter films are superior, in my opinion, in every way to the books. In every single way. In every single way. Like, yeah, sure, you could have seen a bit more character, would have been nice, but in terms of how the story flows, in terms of how things are pieced together, in terms of like useless bits of information, the films are better. I will die on that hill. Margy,
I will die on the hill that the books are better than the film. And you know what? Let's not throw down now. Let's come back to this.
No, I want to know why the book's better than the film and vice versa. Is it just because there's more information?
No, yes and no. Like there's more information.
You kind of said
more...
No, sorry.
I don't know. There's more about the wizarding world, and there's more about seeing things through new eyes and all of this. And the characters in the movies are one-dimensional at best. Like they're not really characters. They're just people there to say lines to move the plot along, where in the novels there's a bit more. I wouldn't say she's like the most masterful author ever, but there is more character work in the novels, and it progresses from being a very childish first 3 books to getting more grown up as you go through. And I just think it's far superior, the books. They're easy to read. They're very trashy. Like it's, and it's got like all of just these little nuanced things that just make you realize that, there's so much more than what the movies have. The movies just leave so much out. And I think it just ruins like the characters. Like,
so how would you how would you go about putting that into the movies?
Oh, I probably would have done an epic TV series.
It would have been better as a TV series. I agree.
Well, that's the point I was going to get at. I feel like there's the main issue about going from books to film or TV is the fact that you've got a medium that is left to you to filter through it in your own time for as long as you need. Whereas there's no one that's going to watch a TV or a movie film for half an hour at a time and be like, oh, I'll watch the next half an hour later. So I think it's inherently always at a disadvantage, especially for say like Harry Potter. It's like there's a long series of books that's got a lot of deep, almost like a tertiary knowledge in the side. It's just world building. It's just side knowledge that I feel like anyone who's read a book really deeply and is really in that world is like, well, why isn't that in there? It's like, well, because it's not actually necessary, and that's probably why it's not there. It's enjoyable, but it's not probably necessary.
There's a lot of close-up shots of Harry's face going, and I'm like, oh, you could leave that out. Gee.
Yeah. But see, I'd argue that like the storyline ties together better in the films. I think like there are certain points in the books where I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to happen next in the film, but then there's all this like superfluous stuff that kind of happens that doesn't really make much sense to get the film to get the story to this point, whereas like the film just like gets there in a much smarter way.
It cuts out the mess.
Yeah, it cuts out a lot of the mess. And I also feel like, and this was the argument, is like, I think I've come to the conclusion, and maybe I said this on another podcast as well, but I think this will be the hill that I die on as well. I don't actually think fucking J.K. Rowling is a transphobe. I think maybe she just hates women because all the female characters in the books are much weaker than they are in the films. Every single one of them. Molly Weasley in particular is not a strong character in the books. Like she does absolutely still fucking fuck up Bellatrix Lestrange at the end, but everything else about her is this like weak trodden down mother in the books. It's like it's not done well.
I didn't read her like that. I read her as a mother of 50,000 children and she runs a tight ship and she sends howlers and she is not afraid to she's a tough mom. Like that's how I know. Like, she reminds me of my mom, I think, maybe.
I don't know. I suppose there's just like a couple of scenes. Like there's that one where she sees the boggart and the boggarts like of her husband dead, and it's like she's just like crying down and weeping, and like it's just like the way it was just portrayed, and especially in that particular scene, it's like there was a chance for her to obviously show like vulnerability but strength as well, and it just came. I don't know, the way I read it, it was a very weak character in a lot of these moments that she could have shown a lot of strength, and I feel like she's shown a lot stronger in the films. I feel like and Hermione is a lot smarter in the films, I feel, than in the books. Like I feel like Hermione in the books is a lot about pushing Harry and Ron forward rather than being her own person. I feel like she's more of her own person in the films as well. And so I just feel like
the whole welfare movement.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do wish that, fucking not snot.
Spew.
What was it? Spew.
Yeah.
I do wish that the spew movement was in the film. 100%. I wish that was in the films because that was fucking great. Because there is no push to socialism in the film. Let's put it that way.
Let's be real. We are going to do a Harry Potter episode at one point, I think,
Probably.
where we just yell about it for a while. I'm putting a pin in that conversation. I'm being the bigger person, just because I need to rewatch the movies.
Fair. I will then put out that was my runner-up, my best adaptation, and I've bought some what do you call them, props for this episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I'm holding up a classic version of Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. This book sucks, in my opinion. The fucking in the film, like the fucking Hammond, Dr. Hammond in the fucking film is this cute grandpa. He's loving. In this book, he is a grumpy piece of shit the whole film. He fucking hates that his kids are there. He hates his grandkids. He's just this like fucking shitty old man. In the book, Lex, the girl, I forget the boy's name. Lex is stupid as shit in this book. She is useless. She's just a princess who just complains all the time. She's not the computer nerd that she is in the film. The film just has much better characters. It has better action. Like the last third of this book drags on for fucking way too long. I think Jurassic Park adapted so well to film. Let's ignore. I haven't read like The Lost World, so I don't know if that translates as well. Maybe The Lost World's better as a book than a film. But
got some homework to do.
Got some homework to do, but I honestly believe Jurassic Park is far superior as a film than a book.
I've got some good ones to mention.
Go on.
Matilda, that was fantastic adaptation of a Roald Dahl novel. I'm sorry. The Persepolis, which is a graphic novel adapted to a film. Really amazing. If you haven't seen Persepolis, watch it. And then I've got Gone Girl. I have it here, obviously. Fucking brilliant adaptation. The man is annoying, like the male main character. I forgot his name. I'm really bad with names. Like he's so fucking. He's got that like annoyance about him, and you understand, and it's really well casted. I don't know. I think, and the stylization of the movie, real good. Naked Lunch, which is the most fucked up book I've ever read, and I wish I could delete it from my mind. Same goes for the movie, and the fact that they've achieved that. There's a bit of pedophilia in there. There's a lot of bugs. It's a mindfuck. Like, would I recommend the movie? No. Would I recommend the book? Probs not, unless you want a bad acid trip without the acid. It's like if Fear and Loathing just went too deep, too dark, which is saying something. It's And from what I've read of Chuck Palahniuk, I haven't actually read Fight Club, but I've read some of his other novels. I think Fight Club captures his energy pretty well, and I've heard that it's a good adaptation, but I haven't.
What about one of my favorite book to film adaptations, which you might not know? We talk about queen bees and wannabes, helping your daughter survive clicks, gossip, and boyfriends and other realities of adolescence, also known as Mean Girls. Come on. Come on. Book adaptation Mean Girls.
Huge. I did not know that at all.
Not directly, but it's definitely inspired. It's like a satirical book adaptation. So
oh my God.
No, I found that out on my research for this episode. I didn't think anyone would have delved that deeply to know that.
I didn't really delve. I just looked at my bookshelf.
Yeah.
That's That's amazing.
I think it's basically a satirical play on a self-help book that people were buying for their daughters to help them not get bullied in school, which is awful. But also, I think the movie takes a pretty good view on how ridiculous it is, and you should just be your own person.
Yeah.
Have you got some bad book to film or TV?
David Lynch's Dune. Hot garbage. Absolute trash.
The glowing blue eyes. Oh,
like I have such a soft spot for that adaptation, to be honest. I'm not going to say it's good by any stretch of the imagination, but I think because it's like that film has a lot of nostalgia for me. So like I'll agree it's a bad adaptation, but I still have a soft spot for it.
Well, especially since we should have gotten Alejandro Jodorowsky's version, which was supposed to be amazing. But I'm glad it died because we wouldn't have had Alien. So the fact that movie didn't make it, we got Alien. What about the best book to film adaptation ever? Battlefield Earth. Has anyone seen Battlefield Earth?
No.
Oh, you've not seen it? Leverage? Leverage. You've not seen that? It is awful. It's the worst film I reckon I've seen in my life. Even L. Ron Hubbard, I reckon, would be upset about that film adaptation.
Yeah. And that's saying something.
And that's saying something. Yeah. Poor John Travolta. He's definitely been held captive by Scientology for years, and they've just been blackmailing him about being gay, which is awful. Like, just let him be himself. Just let him go. What about Mike Myers, Cat in the Hat? Awful. Terrible.
I really enjoyed
that.
No.
Unnecessary.
I really, really enjoyed that film. I thought that was funny as shit.
Unnecessary. I've got a nice obscure one for you that I feel really strongly about. So, The Princess Diaries is a very popular film amongst like if you were young. When did it come out? It came out when I was 9, but I'd already read all of the books because they're written by Meg Cabot, and my mum bought them for me. And I was like, teen reading at the age of fucking 6 and 7, bloody easy. Learned about periods way too young. It's like,
at least you're prepared.
Anyway. Yeah, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, scarred me for life. Because that was set in the 60s when you used to have to wear period belts and hook on. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what's coming for me? It's all right. It's all right. We've changed. Anyway, so, okay, the movie came out when I was 9. Everyone was obsessed with it, but I was so mortified because they got everything wrong. Have you guys seen it? No. The Princess Diaries? You should. It's like everyone's seen it. But so
maybe. I think I might have seen it. It's on TV pretty
and it's got Anne Hathaway in it as well. So Julie Andrews is cast as Grandmère, which is the grandmother. In the movie, she's a dignified, kind woman who's very regal. In the book, she's a chain smoker who likes to always have a sidecar cocktail with her. She has eyeliner tattooed on, and she only ever speaks in French and is just this crazy person. The father who they portray is dead, and it's really poignant, is actually still alive. The only reason she finds out she's going to be princess is because he had testicular cancer, and now he's gone infertile from the radiation. And she's like, oh, you're not having any more kids. And she finds out who he is because she never knew. And they even got the cat the wrong color. The cat is ginger. It's a fat ginger cat, and they cast a fucking black and white cat. I mean, it's details like that. And the cat had the very wrong temperament. It's meant to be a grumpy old thing who eats socks. This cat, somewhat affectionate.
I mean, just to play devil's advocate, I feel like it'd be pretty difficult to get a grumpy cat to play ball on a film set.
Bowie would do pretty well, I think. My cat's an arsehole. But yeah, I think that complete, and everyone talks about everyone loves the movie and stuff. I don't know, a lot of females from my generation, I guess. And I'm like, but it's all wrong. They cast everything wrong. It's even the wrong city. It's set in New York, and the movie's in San Francisco. And I go, that was my first experience of book to film being really wrong, and it's obviously really stuck with me through my life.
Sounds like it. I mean, for me, American Gods is one of my favorite films, and the adaptation was okay at best. Of everything else that's been adapted
series?
from, the series is it's just one of those ones that it's so high fantasy that it's I mean, it's not like high fantasy like Sandman is high fantasy, which is set in another universe. It's high fantasy, but set in this universe. And so it was always going to be difficult for them to pull off. And I just don't
meld the two.
I don't think they quite nailed it. It's interesting, Margie, that you say Fight Club, because everyone loves Fight Club, but honestly, the ending in the book is better than the ending in the film.
Oh, good.
And
Okay.
It's actually quite funny as well that, like, because now there's a graphic novel of Fight Club 2, and in the graphic novel of Fight Club 2, there is like breaking the fourth wall to Chuck Palahniuk sitting at a table, like writing it, talking to his friends about it, and people are like protesting it outside, and he goes out, like his character goes outside at one point and is like, oh, the ending in the book was different, and then it cuts to a panel of like some hipster looking girl that says there's a book, and it's hilarious. But like, I mean, do you want me to spoil it for you, or do you want to read the book?
Spoil it. All right,
I'll
still read the book.
Like, I mean,
spoiler alert.
The book is like 27 years old, so it'd be all right.
Yeah, if you haven't read it, like, spoiler alert, go and read it, and then come back and listen.
If you haven't read it, you never were going
alert,
to.
Skip ahead a minute. We'll give you a minute. There you go.
Exactly. But so he mentions a couple of times throughout the book that he's bad at wiring bombs, and then it gets to that end scene where they're supposed to blow up and nothing happens in the end, and he's like, oh, and then he ends up getting arrested and institutionalized, and there's this, like, the very, very ending is this really cute point where he's like really like super heavily medicated in this wheelchair in this asylum, and he's like having this internal monologue as this janitor's coming past, like sweeping, and as the janitor goes past, he just whispers, "We miss you, sir." And it's just like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, literally my hair is standing up on end. It is such a fucking beautiful ending to this, where it's just like, oh, like, it's just, it has this, like,
that's in line with the Palahniuk. Is that how you say? I don't know how to say it.
I'm pretty Palahniuk.
Oh, whatever it is. That's in line with the other books of his that I've read. That's the ending that I want. That is so much better.
It's a fucking phenomenal ending to it, and it's just like, it's just this, like, it's wholesome, but it shouldn't be wholesome, but it's fucking And so,
the other one been a pretty massive hit for them to make a movie after it so quickly.
Yeah.
So I wonder if even they just changed the end to make it something for people, a reason to go see the movie, to a point of difference. Because like, say like the Dead Space, we're going into games now, the Dead Space remake, the biggest thing about it was like, well, why would I want to play it? Because the best thing about the game is the twist at the end. So it's either, if you're going to make a new experience, you got to change the twist. And everyone's like, well, do I want to play it if they change the twist? But I want to see the twist, but I know the twist. So it's like, it's kind of like, I kind of get a vibe it's going to be different. And I'm seeing it because I know it's going to be different, because if I wanted the same thing, I'd just read the book. Like,
fair. And I think it
has to be different. Otherwise, you're just getting the same experience. Like, if you make it the same as the book, people already have their characters that they've put to it. So they're always going to be disappointed. They're never going to be like, that's exactly what I imagined. And if that is right, you've got one person and everyone else has gone, that's not how I imagined it. So you have to change it. So you can never win, can you?
What about, I was going to ask, what about when films go to books? Because that's the thing.
Well, I'd imagine that's all for lore expansion. Like, if you were to do that, it's probably just to expand on the things that they wouldn't have time for in a movie. But I don't know. I've never read a movie that's gone to a book. But I imagine that would be your purpose.
I have props. I have a good prop and a bad prop, because John Waters loves collecting like book adaptations of like novelizations of films. Like, he talks about it a lot. It's always really funny talking about it. When I was in high school, I read the book adaptation of Alien Resurrection, and my God, it was terrible. Movie. And I wish that I had that, but I have prop examples of good and bad. So the first prop we have is, I have the novelization of Night of the Living Dead, which was written by John Russo. John Russo also helped George A. Romero write the original script. So this book is really, really good. Then I have the novelization of Batman Returns.
The movie sucked. That was the book never going to be good. The movie was shit.
Fucking terrible. Like, actually just terrible. And so don't read this. Whatever you do, read Night of the Living Dead. That's phenomenal. This book's from like the 70s. Batman Returns was 92. So that was 2 years after? Was it 80? No, it was 91. I think.
Which one's Batman Returns? Is that the Penguin or is that the Riddler?
Penguin and Catwoman.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that one. Anyway.
Yeah, it was the second.
That didn't need a book.
The second Tim Burton one.
Have you read any books by Alan Dean Foster? because he's the one who's done the novelizations of Star Wars, Star Trek, Alien, Terminator, Transformers, and individual movie novelizations. So he's done the series, and then he's done the individual movies: Last Starfighter, Krull, The Thing, Outland, Starman, The Chronicles of Riddick, and more. So
wait, isn't The Thing a Stephen King book? Did I make that up?
But I think he novelized
the movie The Thing.
Yeah.
Nah, it's not Stephen King. That's
no.
So that's there's
because he's got The Stand and The Mist and the Dreamcatcher and everything else that he has done.
Imagine, but like the Star Wars novels are amazing, and like I haven't read the other novels, but apparently, this guy Alan Dean Foster has done a career of novelizations of books.
So he's just like he's a lore expander.
But there is one book I want to shout out that is the best. Isabel Allende's Zorro. Yes. Zorro, if you're in España. España. So Zorro is already a folk hero, and he's got lots of stories about him, and he's appeared across different works of literature, TV, and film. And she wrote this book using some of what already existed and expanding upon it and taking different aspects from different things and putting it all into this novel. And it's so good. It's like meant to be like semi-autobiographical, like of like, this is the story of Diego de la Vega and how he became the legendary Zorro. Like it's and I love Isabel Allende's writing. And yeah, it was published in 2005. So we already had Zorro movies out then. We already saw Catherine Zeta-Jones on screen being super hot and Antonio Banderas being so hot as well. So like, and this adaptation, strongly recommend. It's just like a fun adventure story set in, California during Spanish American occupation times. And it's just great. Like, also, Avatar: The Last Airbender comics are fucking sick, and they are lore expansion though. So, they're graphic novels, comics, I don't know, and they're lore expansion, and they answer all the questions after the show, and it's actually a really good adaptation. Good artwork, good telling, so on and so forth.
I was just checking out this Alan Dean Foster dude, and his fucking lineup is sick, but I think this is actually a really interesting thing just to share and read. So apparently, according to Wikipedia, so Foster was the ghostwriter of the original novelization of Star Wars, which was credited solely to George Lucas. When asked when it was asked if it was difficult of him to see Lucas get all the credit for Star Wars, Foster said, "Not at all. It was George's story idea. I merely expanded upon it. Not having my name on the cover didn't bother me in the least. It would be akin to a contractor demanding to have his name on a Frank Lloyd Wright house." Frank Lloyd Wright's a very famous architect. I was like, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
He has a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you went into it with the understanding, like if you went into it thinking that he was going to have his name on it and then they changed it afterwards, but if you come on if you are hired as a ghost writer.
Yeah, then you're collaborating on someone else's idea.
I would love to be a ghost writer. But do a really bad job. Get hired as a ghost writer and just do a terrible job every time.
I'm a ghost writer. I don't write anything.
Ooh, it's spooky.
I feel like though this is quickly turning into our longest podcast ever because
we also skipped over like probably one of the biggest book to movie adaptations ever. We didn't Shawshank Redemption. Different Seasons by Stephen King.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, well, that's a book adaptation. That's as we talked about with the medium beat. That's probably why you never watched.
It's a prison movie, isn't it? I reckon. Yes. Someone dies in it.
Well, someone dies in most movies. Let's be honest.
True. Yeah, no, I've heard good things about it, but no, it's like it's
probably one of the most successful book to movie adaptations, I'd imagine.
Fair. Very, very fair.
Or No Country for Old Men as well. It's also another really good movie that was a book originally.
That was a fun film.
I didn't know it was a book. I would like to read that. I think that would be a good book. I think it would be thrilling.
I think though we do need to start wrapping this up though, unless
because we're going on to like about an hour and a half at the moment. I think
2 questions and
go on.
2 questions, real quick answers. Right. What books should be turned into movies? What book do you want to see turned into a movie?
Grant,
I don't read. I literally cannot answer this question.
Fair. So what book should never be turned into a film?
What book should be? What book shouldn't be? Yeah.
Should be and shouldn't be. All right, well, let's start with shouldn't be, because I have, again, props right in front of me. One of my favorite books ever fucking written by The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, which, if you've never read this, Bulgakov is so the book is basically about it's about the devil, a talking cat, a master assassin, and a vampire fucking up Soviet Russia in like the 1920s to 1940s, but it's also set in the time of the persecution of Jesus by Pontius Pilate, and it's so ridiculous that it's too high fantasy that it just couldn't be turned into a film and be done.
It's too absurdist.
Right?
I am confused just by your synopsis of it. Like, there's no way you could put that on the screen.
Or as I put it when I read it as a teenager, Mum bought it for me because it has Margarita in the name, and I go, "Who's Pontius Pilate? Is that it? Did he invent Paul?" And Mum's like, she's like, Jesus, I probably should have put you in religious education. That's bleak.
Yeah, that's exactly. So that's what you missed out on. That's what I learned while you were with the people that I was jealous of. I was learning about Pontius Pilate. But yeah, like literally, like Grant, to read you the plot, like the start of it, according to Wikipedia, because again, it's very long. The novel has two settings. The first is Moscow during the 1930s, where Satan appears as Patriarch Pons as Professor Walland. He's accompanied by Korovev, a grotesquely dressed valet, Behemoth, a black cat, Azazelo, a hitman, and Hela, a female vampire. They target the literary elite and Mossalit, their trade union, whose headquarters is, I'm not going to say that word, house. Massalit consists of corrupt social climbers, bureaucrats, profiteers, and cynics. The second setting is Jerusalem of Pontius Pilate, Pilate's trial of Jesus of Nazareth, and recognition of an affinity with and spiritual need for Jesus and his reluctant acquiescence to Yeshua's execution. So it's basically convincing Jesus that he needs to be executed and fucking with Soviet Russia in the 1930s. It's a fucking phenomenal book, but it could not be turned into a film or a television show or anything. It's not possible.
It sounds like it's just two different movies.
In a way, yes. My thing of what has to be turned into a movie, Star Wars novels. I've said it before. I've said it again. Turn the fucking Star Wars novels into movies. I don't give a fuck. I want to see Luke's kids. Some things, any novels by Kurt Vonnegut should never be turned into films. I think that maybe one of them has before. I refuse to acknowledge its existence. If so, he's a fucking wacko person. His books are insane. Like, how do you include cartoons in like little drawings? Like, you know,
have you not seen the framing of Roger Rabbit? You can absolutely put cartoons in a movie.
I know that you can, but it's just I think it's another one where he often has concurrent storylines about this and this and this, and putting them all together in a film would be very difficult. And also, you can't capture the absurdity of how he writes and his thought process in a movie. Like, you just and also, absolutely not A Catcher in the Rye. I don't know if they've ever made it into a movie, but fuck that. It would just be an emo kid, and I don't want to see it.
Surely they have. But yeah, I think on the flip side of that, so to answer the question of which one should, like I was going to say Magician, but apparently that is being turned into a film this year. Apparently a studio's just picked up the rights at the start of 2022, and it's being written by the writers of Fear the Walking Dead and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, right. So good. Could be good. But the one, and again, like one that's like happening now as well, that fucking old mate's attached to it. There's going to be Warhammer stuff turned into film or television shows. I believe a television show. Specifically, I'd love to see the series that I'm reading at the moment, The Horus Heresy, because it literally is just Game of Thrones in space. And it's fucking incredible. It's so well written. Everything ties together so well. And it would make, like, there are certain points in it where you can easily see like the end of one season starting, the start of the next season starting. There's specific beats throughout it that you could use to cut up kind of what happens in it. But yeah, the only problem with that though is because it has an ending that it has to get to. So if like the first like 2 seasons flopped and they cancelled it, you'd have some really pissed people because there is a specific ending. It's like if Game of Thrones ended in like season 4 and they never did the rest of it.
But honestly, the only reason why it will flop is you have people that are like super into Warhammer 400k said they missed that one niche thing that I really like about this, so I'm canning it. It sucks. They didn't have that guy didn't have a silver skull on his shoulder. I'm not watching this. And then they're going to review bomb it. It's not going to make it. It's going to go straight in the bin.
And the one thing that I haven't mentioned this episode, which I really had to control myself, obviously a influential book series that I just got a tattoo of, that has been turned into a TV series, Wheel of Time. Absolute blasphemy. Should never have happened. Is the worst thing I've ever fucking seen. Jesus Christ. All right, that's me done.
Oh, we also did, let's not to continue, but we also didn't mention The Hobbit, which was just an unnecessary.
That was.
It makes me too angry. This desk is too heavy. Can't flip it.
But dear listener, on that note, we are gonna wrap up this episode because we fucking have ranted for a lot longer than I thought we would. But fucking how it was. As we move in every week to the final beat for Balrogs and Blastbeats, where we put a question out and then I do a fun little edit of it and put it on the Northside Nerds Instagram and TikTok.
Oh my God, I'm going to be on the internet. Oh my God.
You're going to be on the internet. And this one I thought was going to be a lot of fun. So it's, if you had to choose, which Pokemon would you eat?
Easy.
Are we going just first gen or are we extending beyond that?
I stuck to first gen because that's all I know.
I've got two. I've got the obvious choice and my first gen choice because I know you old people would be shaking your fist at clouds. So the obvious choice, a Pokemon that neither of you would probably know, is called Vanillux. It's basically a double cone ice cream. So that's the obvious choice, but I reckon you would get an absolutely mean Scotch fillet out of a Taurus. Like you massage the sake into it, get that Wagyu going. Yeah, you get a mean grill out of a Taurus for sure.
That's I love that we're discussing this when Josh and I are vegan. So
he posed the question.
I did.
I don't. I have to go. So I'm considering a few things. How easy would it be to catch it? How likely is it to attack me in return? How likely is it to wound me on the way down? How big it is? Because I'm not going to take on a Snorlax. Not going to be able to eat that. And how plant-like does it look? Because sentient plant easier to eat than sentient animal. I think. I haven't faced this yet. Oddish could make us a nice salad addition. But Bellsprout isn't quite as cute as Oddish, so I think it might make it easier. Some vegans think that oysters are okay to eat because they don't have nervous systems, and Shelder doesn't look that smart, and he's just got his tongue out But also, I'd rather not eat a ball of snot. But Ditto could be good as well because you could just get Ditto to turn into something, just turn into all the different Pokemon until you're like, yeah, I'll eat that. And if you go beyond, there's a 9th gen one that's an apple pie. And then there's another one that's a cup of tea. So I will have an apple pie and a cup of tea. Thank you very much. That sounds delightful. But maybe just in case, I'll get Ditto and then just get it to turn into them. And I'll be like, actually, yeah, that tea does look pretty good. I'll go for that. As long as I don't have to eat the cup.
Well, Josh, as a vegan, I feel like Oddish is the obvious. As a vegan,
that doesn't make sense. To me personally, say if it's still a living being, it just completely
it's still a living being,
destroys the argument, does it not?
But in terms of suspending disbelief, it'd be the easiest to suspend disbelief if it looked like my favorite vegetable.
I thought you were trying to tell me that it's worthless because it looks like a plant and not an animal, even though it's still a living thing. And I thought,
vegans hate rainforest. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, exactly. But I fucking back when I was a meat eater, I fucking loved duck, but I think Psyduck looks like he'd taste really gross, to be completely honest.
Golduck, I was like, he might be better. He's a bit
Golduck may be better, but I was always a sucker for seafood, so I'm gonna eat a kingler. I'm gonna have me some nice king crab, and I feel like that's just gonna be a delicious time because I fucking loved. It's probably the thing that I miss the most is seafood, so I'm gonna eat me a kingler.
Seafood is disgusting.
Oh, so good.
It's brewed in its own fecal matter.
If there was an anchovy Pokemon, I'd just eat that because
I'm sure there is. There'd be an anchovy Pokemon.
Sure.
I haven't eaten seafood in 20 years because it's that disgusting. So absolutely not.
Probably the hardest thing for me to give up was seafood. So swings and roundabouts. But dear listener, we need to know. Like I said, every Friday on the Northside Nerds Instagram and TikTok, I post a question. There's always a great discussion. There's a good one happening about the mushroom from Last of Us and how we are 100% heading towards that. Yeah, we are 100% heading towards that eventuality because
I told you I'm so afraid of the cordyceps. I don't want it to be real.
And it's, there's a discussion happening on TikTok at the moment that is exactly where we're heading. So,
I mean, that would probably happen if we ate a Pokemon. That's what's going to fucking set it off,
Probably.
Oh, Jesus.
But let us know in the comments. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can let us know in the comments on YouTube as well. What Pokemon are you gonna eat? I stole that from a TikTok, just being completely honest, because it's some like crazy dude who's just kind of like, which Pokemon would I eat based on how cute they are? And then he just goes.
I love that guy. I know exactly who you mean. Because he's
so funny.
He's like, animals that are irrationally cute that shouldn't exist, and I want to kill them because they're so cute. And that's me when I look at a flying squirrel.
Was he just talking about making like Squirtle into a turtle stew or something? Comes with its own bowl.
I mean, so
I don't think, like, even when I was a meat eater, I don't think I could have ever eaten.
No,
turtle.
I can't do turtle. I don't. No.
Everyone has
crab,
the line.
Sure, turtle, probably not.
Yeah, that's the line. That's the line for me. But
I will eat a living creature if it's a cup of tea. It turns out that's my line. Look out, wild teacups.
Lock up your pottery. Margy's on the town. She's eating clay.
This is how hard it is to end a podcast when there's 3 Spurgs that all go on different tangents all the time.
Unleash the beasts.
This has been Balrogs Blastbeats for another week. The book versus the film. Tell your mum to listen to this episode.
Uncool. Ooh,
we are. I think your mother would like this episode. I know my mother would love this episode, so you should tell her to listen to this. And any book readers.
Yeah, tell Josh's mum to listen to it.
Oh yeah, go and find. Don't do that, please.
Her address is.
Tell your mum, not my mum. I'll tell my mum. And until then,
thank you.
Peace, love, and oddish.
Nom 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 nom.